is the Pegasus Podcast, presented by Night Sports Now. UCF news, views, and a few hot takes. Now, here are your hosts, Bailey Go Knights Adams and Christian Charge On Simmons.
Welcome into episode 256. Be sure you're following us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at ByCASimmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. You can also email us at PegasusPodcast@ksn@gmail.com. Christian, how's it going?
It's great. So, a little heads up, if you're watching the YouTube version, you'll see by the lovely photo of what appears to be some kind of fruit market behind me that I am not, in fact, in my usual dwellings. My parents are on vacation. They're on a cruise for my dad's birthday, 60th birthday. He probably loves that I included that part. So I am at my parents' house and I am watching their two dogs, whom I love very much, but who also for the last 3 hours have just been barking at everything. And not totally sure when that's going to stop. So Bailey, you may have to be ready to carry significant portions of this podcast, depending on when they decide that the house is under attack and it needs to be defended.
And now I am ready to do so because I don't know if anybody watching the YouTube can now realize I was just plugging in my microphone that wasn't plugged in for the first 30 seconds of me talking. I'm still not even really sure if it's working now, but it's plugged in.
You sound
good. Okay, cool. We were going through it before we even started recording. I'm trying to change all the background stuff, and I was laughing because you were like forgetting to do stuff, and then I get halfway through the intro and I'm like, I'm not talking into a microphone. I'm just talking into my computer. So
we record in a platform called StreamYard, which if you've ever podcasted or anything like it, you've probably heard of it. And Bailey had to stop me. My hand was over the button, ready to launch us in the Around the Kingdom background or studio. Like we were just going to do Around the Kingdom with Bailey and Christian and see if Sons is okay with that. So, and then I also didn't switch the views. There was a lot. Bailey basically 3 times had to be like, it was like when you have a kid who's really bad at school, but you're still trying to hype him up. Like I would do one of the tasks and you're like, good job. But like, you still need to do the other thing.
You gotta do this too. Yeah, no, it's going to be a podcast, which is what we promise every week.
Can that be our new tagline just of our podcast? The Pegasus Podcast. It's going to be a podcast, ... which we promise every week.
Yeah. Sure. Why not? I don't know. We don't have a tag. Well, we do have a tagline. That's a lie.
It's right there. It's literally right above you.
I'm not reading it. This is a great start. So last week on the podcast, we talked about the schedule. And as we were kind of going through how, I don't know, unenthused I am about the possibility of UCF playing a football season, we were like, let's go ahead and let's look at the roster because it's been a process of finding different. I mean, I don't know. I think Scott Frost said in the interview he did with Mark Daniels on UCF's YouTube. I think he said when he got here they had 50 players in the roster and they had to get to 85. So yeah, this roster looks completely different. And you made the point where you were like, we should get the roster together and kind of just see where it is right now. And thanks to you did all the work on that because I just was not, I don't know. I didn't do it. I woke up this morning and you were like, here's what I have so far. And I was like, great. And my actual response was Sincere Edwards was born in 2006. So yeah, we got the roster to go through here, at least as it stands right now. And the plan for us is we're going to grade each position group on our confidence score, 1 to 5. General thoughts before we start and dive right in. This went exactly as I thought it would in my head. The defense, I have a lot higher scores than the offense. So
yeah, general thoughts for me was I largely wanted to do this because I thought Bailey's doom and gloom 3-9 stuff was a little preposterous, particularly for February. And then we did this exercise and I was like, okay, no, I can see where he's coming from.
I love when things age well that I say.
We'll see. This is about, it is not the entire roster. What we have here, and I apologize for whoever I missed because again, there's no one place to just see this all. So I did what I could with going through UCF's tweets and the roster from last year, etc. What we have here are the top 50 players whom I believe would be contributors to some degree. So always a chance that,
Okay. I didn't know you did that. I didn't know you did 50. I just thought
I'm rounding up. It's 48, but still, it's
Well,
it's,
good
this
news.
Was
I added a
these
few.
guys are not, Okay.
So maybe we have 52.
Good. So we're over 50. Go us.
Great. All right. Well, let's start at the quarterback position because that's where we go. David Jackson, Dylan Risk, Jakari Brown, Cam Fancher. What's your confidence score in that group?
I gave it a 3.
Oh, okay.
Did you give it a 2?
Yeah.
Yep. I'm willing to bet I'm going to be able to guess your score for every position group before you even tell me.
We should. I want you to do that. I want you to give yours first every time and then guess mine.
Okay, we will do that. I figured
I don't know
you'd
how
do
we've switched roles. Like I thought last week was just like a one-time thing. Apparently we've just switched roles on the podcast forever now.
Well, I thought about giving it a 2. Yeah, this is just it. They're going to be like, I want you to be the worst, the type of UCF fan I hate. Like, I want them to be like surprised. I don't know. They go 7-5 this year, but like they lost a couple close ones. And I want you to be on this podcast and be like, could have been playing for a Big 12 title. Like, should have been better. I went 3 because there's 3 quarterbacks who might start. So I gave a point to each of them. Not really. I don't know. I
was going to say like, that's what we're doing here.
The reason I gave, and I toyed with a 2, but the reason I gave it a 3 is I feel like 3 is representative of about what I expect this room to be. Like if we get to the end of the season and you're asking me to grade how UCF's quarterbacks did this year, I'm probably going to guess I'd say about a 3. We know that they can put Dylan Risk out there and it won't be a disaster. We know
That's
they can
why I
put
gave it a 2.
Jakari Brown out there and it won't necessarily be a disaster. So it's not a situation where I'm like, wow, what if they don't have a quarterback who can even see the field? What we don't know is the upside. I don't know how low the ceiling is on these guys, and it might be low. But I also don't think that there's anyone I don't think there's a situation where it's a train wreck, where there's someone out there who just literally cannot play quarterback at all.
I agree. I think we're coming at it from similar standpoints because, yeah, I looked at it and I was like, if we know what Dylan Risk can do, we kind of know what Jakari Brown can do, and at very, very baseline level, it'll be fine. And that's why I can't. Me saying it's fine, I'm not going to go and say, yeah, I'm confident. So I didn't want to go up to a 3. That's why I have it as a 2. I don't know what Taven Jackson is going to be or can be, so I can't really like say I'm confident yet. And that's why I think in the outline, I think it was an early outlook because this all could change, and we'll get to a position where I actually feel like it's going to be a gigantic change between now and the end of the season. But I think for the quarterbacks, I'd be surprised if by the end of the year it was more than a 3, maybe a 4. But this group just doesn't make me feel like, wow, like they're set. I don't know. I'd be surprised if any of them are UCF starting quarterback in 2026.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Bailey doesn't think Mackenzie Milton can coach.
Okay, all right.
My new thing I'm going to do is just twist every single thing you say into the worst, most negative take possible. All right. We're pretty much in lockstep on that. I feel like we just ended with a different score. I feel like we largely feel the same way. And the other caveat I'll throw in about how we feel at the end of the season is there is still a spring portal window, so they can still add more guys here, and I'm sure we'll learn a lot from spring ball. But yeah, I just feel I mean I don't know I guess what has to happen for it to be a 5 at the end of the year? What circumstances play out that happened? Is it Dylan Risk is the next Milton, and we just didn't realize it? Is that the only, I don't see a way that Taven Jackson gets us to a 5, to be honest.
I don't know what it is in my head. Maybe it's just because he's tweeting and acting like he's QB1, and maybe that's just tricking me. But I don't know. Every time I picture the season, I'm picturing Dylan Risk as the starting quarterback. And there's been nothing to tell us like that's going to be the case.
He's new Mikey Keene, is I fear what that means, and I think that's why we feel that way a little bit. But this is a lot of 2022 quarterback competition parallels for sure. Young guy who stepped in and was good, not great, versus transfer who comes in and is kind of iffy at their last stop. I mean, it's very similar to JRP.
Yeah, no. So that's what I'm saying. It feels like the way that it would get to a 5 is, I don't know why it could be Dylan, it could be any of them, but any of them playing really well and kind of having a surprisingly great season and going into next year thinking, all right, like we already have our guy.
Yeah. I mean, I cannot wait for Cam Fancher to start after this conversation, but yeah, I don't know. It's funny that you say you imagine Risk. I'm operating under the assumption that it's going to be Taven Jackson. And I think I'd like to be wrong, which is sort of stupid, but for some reason in my head, Dylan Risk is a little more the sort of UCF story. I don't know. I just like that story more of a guy who, comes in, he was 4th string going from 4th string to starter is pretty cool. But at the end of the day, we can talk about all day long Gus's flaws and, he always played his guy at quarterback. Scott Frost doesn't know Dylan Risk. Scott Frost did not bring in Dylan Risk. He did bring in Taven Jackson. And the credit I'll give to Frost over Malzahn is that I do think if risk is clearly better. I don't think Frost will have any qualms about being, well, no, Taven's my guy. I made him promises, whatever. Frost will just go, great, we're going to play that guy. So that's a pro, but yeah, I don't know. I'm very curious because I will say one thing. All right, I'm dropping my quarterback competition prediction. I doubt there's going to be significant separation. I don't think it's going to be like that we're rolling into fall camp and the coaches are like, it's obviously this guy.
I'd be surprised. And what's funny, and I don't know, this is again just in my brain. I wonder how much weight that would carry is like Scott Frost saying, like, I brought in Taven Jackson versus how much Scott Frost was like, we need a quarterback and we don't want to spend too much on a guy. We don't have a lot to spend on a guy. So this is the guy we're bringing in. Like, I don't know. I'm sure he likes Taven Jackson to an extent, but I just am curious if he went into the portal, grabbed him and was like, I envision him being our starter versus we'll just see what we have. Yeah,
we could be way off base. And honestly, we're going to have to wait and see what Frost says about. We haven't heard him talk about any of these guys yet, so we'll have to wait and see. But maybe we are way off base, but it did seem like the general vibe was Taven Jackson was more what was left than UCF was really passionate about bringing him in. And that doesn't mean he's bad. That doesn't mean he's not a good option, but it's important for the context of the competition.
Yeah, no, it is. So we'll see. We can move to running back now. Jaden Nixon, Miles Montgomery, Tavion Swint, Stacey Gage, probably the top 4 guys that you're looking at. What'd you give it?
I gave it a 3, and I think you gave it a 3 too.
I gave it a 4.
You gave it a 4? Wow.
Yeah.
You remember Penny Boone?
Yeah, and I think given the chance, he would have been really good.
Yeah, I agree. He basically every time he carried the ball, he did well, and for some reason, the coaching staff saw that and thought, better make sure that doesn't happen anymore. So that was cool. Yeah, a 4, really. Wow, I'm already not guessing your scores right. This is too bad. I guess I'm going to stop doing that now.
No, I want you to do it because it's fun.
I know what it is for wide receiver. I could call it right now. But yeah, I mean, is running back that's the position group on offense we feel best about, right?
I have another 4.
Okay, I know what it is, but okay, we'll get there.
We'll get there. But yeah, I think so. I think Jaden Nixon has, the potential to kind of steal the show and be the guy. But remember, like Frost didn't typically have a 1V guy the way Gus did.
Right.
And I think this is a group that, again, I was going to say I feel like confident with any of these 4, but I guess we haven't seen Tavion Swint play at the college level, and we also haven't seen Stacey Gage play. But I don't know. I think even if you're just splitting carries between the top 2 guys, Jaden Nixon and Miles Montgomery, I think that's going to be a pretty good duo. And I don't know. I'm more excited about this group, which is I think why I probably bordered on a 4 rather than just sticking at 3. 3 feels like kind of neutral to me, and I guess that's kind of dumb because it is. I don't know. No, I guess that's not dumb because it is the swing from a 1 to 5 scale, but. Yeah, I don't know. I feel a little slightly better than average about this group.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not far off from you. I feel good about this group. I gave them a 3 more because more looking at the downside of things than the upside of things, if that makes sense. Like I gave them a 3 because, all right, Jaden Nixon, we think he's going to be good. He played well at Oklahoma State when he was backing up Ollie Gordon. He just had a great season in the MAC, but we don't totally know. We have to wait and see, just like with all transfers. Miles Montgomery, we know is good, and we know plays well, but also had some injury issues. And Tavion Swint and Stacey Gage are both wild cards. So looking at it from that side of things, that held me back a little bit. And I don't want to jump position groups ahead, but my ranking of offensive line also is part of what's holding me back on my overall confidence of this group because
I was just,
they will be influenced. They will be influenced by obviously how well that group performs. Now, I do want to bring up what you said about Frost because it is a good point that I don't want to do the thing. I'm trying not to do the thing because I feel like every time UCF coach leaves UCF and we're like, yeah, turns out we hated them the whole time and we were just really good at hiding it. Like for a long time, I wanted Gus to work out. I thought he would work out, but so I don't want to just act like we're just vomiting flaws, but the running back thing was weird. And it was another thing that we called from pretty early on because it was a thing at Auburn too, where it just seemed like I don't know, once, and part of it was RJ Harvey was really good, but it just seemed like he never knew how to use that room in a balanced way. It was always like, well, running back 1 is really good, so let's just use him. And it was weird this year. It almost seemed like they couldn't find a role for Penny because he was so different from RJ. And it seemed like Miles and even Johnny were easier because they were more similar players, Miles in particular, and could just sort of plug and play. And that was just so silly to me because there were so many situations this year where you could use a larger, more physical back like Penny Boone. And I don't know, but that is not how Frost operated when he was at UCF. I can't speak as much to Nebraska, obviously, but he used running backs. He went deep into that room in both of his seasons. he also used them in really creative ways. He sort of knew how to subvert expectations of what a defense would expect from a guy. And I'm excited to see how he can use a room that we're hoping has probably 2, maybe as many as 3 guys who can be ready to play this year, and see how Frost can mess around there and get the most out of them.
Yeah, and like you said, on the list of Gus Malzahn flaws, I think the running back thing is fairly low. Like I feel like, yeah, they did waste Penny Boone, and I feel like that's more of a, like, that sucks for Penny because he transferred in probably expecting to play a lot more than he did. Yeah. But yeah, when you have a guy like RJ Harvey as your running back 1, it doesn't stand out as a big flaw like it might otherwise. But yeah, and what kind of excites me, like you mentioned too, and we were talking about how Frost has been used multiple backs at UCF. He also, and this is probably out of necessity, but also because he had talent, was not afraid to use young guys. Like we saw Killins, we saw Otis, we saw all of them make an impact early on in their careers. Part of it, again, necessity, but part of it, like, that's why I kind of wonder, like, I think you'll see Tavion Swint, Stacey Gage, obviously a freshman and then a sophomore get in the mix. And I mean, obviously part of it has to do with how this offseason goes and how they're able to assimilate into things. But yeah, I think that excites me about this room too, is that you have, I don't know, I guess I can't call Nixon a proven guy, but I want to say Nixon and Miles, you kind of know what you're getting. And then you have 2 young guys with really high upside. And that's why I went 4 rather than just kind of staying neutral on a 3. But it's kind of like a low 4, if that makes sense.
Nixon is proven from the perspective of he just had a really good season in the MAC, and in the 2 years before that, he was in this conference and performing well while in this conference. You talk about Frost using young guys. Adrian Killins, as a freshman, got 50 carries and recorded 18 catches. A year later, Otis Anderson, as a freshman, got 69 carries and recorded 30 catches. Like, he was not afraid to go deep in that room. And yeah, I understand those were 2 special players. We think Tavion Swint's a special player. Yeah. We're hoping, so maybe we see that again.
Well, even, what was it, 2016, wasn't Juwan Hamilton was a freshman too, wasn't he? And he was
he a freshman in 16?
Maybe he wasn't. I don't know. But I think he was young, and he was pretty much the lead back, if I remember correctly. So yeah, there's a few guys that he used. And again, I think that those 2, Tavion Swint especially, we also, coming into college, Stacey Gage had a lot of hype too. And I don't want to give up on him after 1 year of a coach who only really used 1 running back, had 3 other ones that were really good behind RJ, and didn't find the greatest ways to use them either. So yeah, there was no chance that Stacey Gage was going to, find a way to get into that mix last year. So we'll kind of see on him, but yeah,
it's tough to toe the line in the portal era, because I feel like, and we're guilty of this, I'm not just talking about fans, I think it's us too, is that it's kind of the instant gratification era. And it's like, I think we've kind of been conditioned that a guy comes in and they're either the guy in year 1, or we just don't expect them to be anything. And I think Stacey Gage falls in that category of someone you can just sort of forget about because he didn't play as a freshman. Lots of guys don't play much as true freshmen. It's a good indicator. You want them to play a lot as true freshmen because that implies that there's high upside there. But because a guy doesn't get on the field right away doesn't mean that it's time to just move on. It could be one of a number of things. One of those things perhaps being that RJ Harvey existed.
Yeah. Let's say it would have been a bad thing last year. It would have been bad if Stacey Gage had played a lot, because there were RJ Harvey and 3 other running backs you would expect to play above him. So
I have no idea how you ever could have justified putting him in over Johnny Richardson or Penny Boone or Miles Montgomery or RJ Harvey. There was just no way.
Yeah, so we'll see. Wide receiver. Some of the guys you had on the list: DJ Black, Marcus Burke, Burdell Richardson, Day Farmer, Waden Charles, a couple of freshmen I added, Carl Jenkins Jr. and Cozy Isaac. What'd you give it?
I gave it a 1, and I think you did too.
I did. Yeah. This was the one that I teased a little earlier that I think I'm putting at a 1 right now, that by the end of this season, I could be as high as like a 4 or a 5. Like, we just don't know, but I think there's a lot of upside here. I just don't know.
It's not, well, I was about to say, it's not like I look at this room and think, wow, there's no good players, but I guess that is kind of what I think. But at the same time, it's entirely unknown quantities, commodities, excuse me. Like, I just don't know. DJ Black played really well, and I like his measurables. He just did it at Limestone, not the Rock, the school. So it's just hard to know how that's going to translate to the Big 12. Marcus Burke, I don't care. I don't know. I don't know if I'm burnt on. I just feel like in the portal era, it's guy spends whole career at school and never really contributes, doesn't signal to me. It's also like, it's not even like when UCF was in the AAC and you could talk about, oh, well, maybe at a lower level. It's like, is the Big 12 that much of a lower level from the, this isn't some giant drop in the guys he's going to be going up against. So I'm not, and now that I've said that, he's going to catch, like a billion passes for 1,000 yards or something. But I think of this group, the best I feel about is Burdell Richardson. And that's scary in its own right because we haven't seen him.
Yeah. Who do I feel the best out of this group? I don't know. Like I think I like want to default to DJ Black, but again, like you say, he did what he did at Limestone, and I can't even tell you. I think we've learned through the Sons of UCF Network where Limestone is, but I still don't know what conference they play in or any of the teams they play. Day Farmer might be the other one where I'm like, he at least played a little bit as a freshman in this conference. But again, I don't know. And that you were right to mention, we actually kind of got off of it. We'll get back to it probably when we talk O-line. But as much as the running back, the confidence in the running back room will depend a little bit on the O-line, this room can also probably depend on the quarterback. Well, definitely will depend on the quarterback, which actually kind of scares me because if they had a rock solid quarterback that was like, you knew who the guy was going to be at quarterback, I could be like, yeah, he'll figure out the wide receivers, and we'll see. Just people will step up. With there being an unclear answer at quarterback and no wide receivers that we really know about for the quarterback to throw to, it's really not the best situation to be in because both rooms are going to try to figure themselves out while also depending on the other room that's trying to figure it out.
Can I ask you a philosophical football question?
Sure. I might not have an answer.
Well, you're going to have to. It's an either or, so you're just going to have to pick and go with it. Would you rather, if you were a coach, or just you can assign one of these to UCF in 2025, would you rather have an elite quarterback paired with only average wide receivers, or would you rather have an average quarterback paired with 3 elite wide receivers?
See, I don't know. I'm thinking of examples of both, and I'm thinking you can also win with both or either. The problem is
UCF doesn't have
either. I was just thinking, I thought immediately when you said, again, he had a great year, but I thought about the Vikings this year, and we went to the NFL right away, but I thought of Sam Darnold and then having Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison to throw to. It's like, yeah, like most quarterbacks that you throw into that situation are going to find a way to be productive, I think. And watch, I'll be proven wrong now when they throw in J.J. McCarthy and he stinks. But
the second
I think that's the case.
Vikings, I realized I wouldn't be able to participate in this conversation anymore. So that was nice.
But then the other thing, and this is another bad example probably because I think back, I guess, to early 2021 with UCF. You can come back into the conversation now. When UCF had Dylan Gabriel, but they didn't have like a set trio of superstar wide receivers.
They had Ryan O'Keefe and Jordan Johnson, basically.
And what's his name? Brandon Johnson.
Not Jordan Johnson. I meant Brandon Johnson. They very much did not have Jordan Johnson.
They had him. He just never played.
He existed. And then Jalen Robinson came back from injury later in the year and didn't really do a ton and then transferred out. So, yeah. That's a solid comparison. And you know what?
It's only a 3 games comparison. So.
Yeah, but you know what? They put up a lot of points in those 3 games. They went 2-1, but still, yeah, I don't know. I guess
this is, I don't want to take us on a tangent, but
no, please do.
You remember, didn't Dylan in that Louisville game before he got hurt have a passing, rushing, and receiving touchdown?
Yes. He
in his last ever game at UCF.
Jalen Robinson threw a touchdown pass to him, right?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Was it Jalen Robinson?
No,
Probably.
maybe it wasn't. I can't remember. I don't know. But
I tried to erase that game from my brain.
What was the uniform combo? This is my new thing I do every time we come up with a game. What was the uniform combo?
It was a whiteout, wasn't it? With the whited out UCF stack. It was a really nice look, but they lost, so everyone hates it.
They were essentially the same thing against TCU this year, and they won. So,
yeah, that's fair.
Wow, we were at the games where they did the whiteout with the white stack UCF decal.
Yeah. Wait.
Things no one cares about but us.
Okay, another thing no one would care about. Didn't they also go whiteout? No, they didn't, did they?
Yes, they did at Memphis.
Memphis? Did they go whiteout?
Yep.
Yeah.
Different decal, but yep.
Yeah.
Wait, This is weird. Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
All right. So if we decide,
do you think they're doing it because of us?
No.
Like they're like, oh, they're going to be at this game. We got to do a whiteout.
Absolutely not. But yeah, the wide receivers are a 1 because I don't know any of them.
I agree. I asked my philosophical question because I'm thinking about at the end of the season, do I find it more realistic that UCF found its quarterback or that the wide receivers overperformed? And I think I'm leaning towards wide receivers overperforming, because how are they not going to overperform from our current expectations, which are non-existent? But I don't know.
I think what it is there's more of, I don't know. I think because they're so unknown, there's more of a chance that they'll overperform also, because some of them are highly rated recruits and they're young, but they could flash some extreme potential that looks great. And if it's good enough to where, obviously it depends on keeping these guys around, but if it's good enough, then maybe next offseason you can really attract a quarterback, if you haven't found your quarterback by then, that with a good group of wide receivers to throw to. I don't know. It doesn't really work like that always, but we'll see.
I offer you the dream scenario for the 3 position groups we've talked about so far? Like what I think of when I go to sleep at night, like what's in my dreams?
All of them being really good.
Okay. Oversimplification. Actually, no, actually that's not where I was going with this. In my wildest dreams, no, they aren't even all good. Dylan Risk has a really strong redshirt sophomore season. Tavion Swint comes on strong as a true freshman. Burdell Richardson and Day Farmer both look really good. And suddenly you're going into 2026 with a really young, really dangerous core on offense.
I like that.
That's what I'm rooting for. That and win some games.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Maybe 2 or 3.
That reminded me of The Office when you said that, like, even in my wildest dreams, they're not even all good. It was just Dwight was like, it was that he owned a bed and breakfast.
Yeah, but he goes, even in your wildest dreams, you own a bed and breakfast in hell. And he goes, yeah, but you haven't heard my salary, $80,000 a year.
Oh, dang. All right, let's go. Tight end. Dylan Wade transferred in. Kylan Fox, Elijah Brown. This is dumb.
I gave it a 3. You gave it a 4.
Yeah, it's kind of dumb that I gave it a 4, but it's different than, well, I don't know. It's not different than a lot of them, but it's different in that I feel good about both Dylan Wade and Kylan Fox. I guess the easy answer to that is, what if one of them goes down? Then I'm going to probably not feel like it's a 4, but I feel like depending on the type of sets they run, having 2 really solid top tight end options makes me feel pretty good.
Yeah, no, I'm going to refute most of that. I think that, I mean, I agree that I'm really excited about Dylan Wade. That was a really solid bounce back from losing Randy Pittman, because that was a body blow. And he had a really solid season at Maryland, right? He came from Maryland. Mm-hmm. I'm not going crazy. They added like 40 guys. I'm doing what I can. 29 catches, 374 yards, 2 touchdowns. I feel really good about him as the tight end. And I love that it gives them another pass catching option, given what doesn't exist at wide receiver. Yeah. I don't feel the same warm, fuzzy feelings for Kylan Fox that you feel. Okay. It has nothing to do with anything. It's not that I think that he's not going to be good. It's just he falls in the same category as like Stacey Gage to me. I just don't know. You can also point to him being another guy who maybe the opportunities weren't necessarily there last year, given what else there was at his position group. But I don't know. It just feels a little thin to me. Like I feel good about Wade, but to your point, if he gets hurt, I don't really know what happens.
Yeah, and now I'm second guessing. I'm trying to remember how often, like what kind of formations Frost would run the most. Like, did he run a lot of 2 tight end sets? Because if he did, then maybe I shouldn't have a set of 4. But if he's running out there with 1 tight end most of the time, I think you're going to be fine with Wade. And then I don't know. I guess Fox is more of an unknown and he's less of an unknown in my head than he really is in reality. But I don't know. I have high hopes for him, and I think this is, I don't know. I think it's a good group. It's not elite. This
is great, man, because it was a little dicey there, but we're turning him back into our natural roles. I'm the one being negative while you're like, well, I don't know. I feel like he could be good. So we're getting back on track.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. Anything else on the tight end before we move on to offensive line?
Yeah, I just Googled UCF football 2017 2 tight end set just because I wanted to see if anything would come up, like if anyone had any breakdowns or anything. And I got the Google AI overview going, yes, UCF football had tight ends on their team in 2017. Thanks,
sure
Google.
Did. I mean, I'm trying. Sometimes the years run in my head, like, or run into each other in my head, because obviously Jordan Akins had a really good year. Was it that year or was it the year after that Koulibaly had a really good year?
See, that's what I was trying to remember too. And I think Koulibaly was the year after. I don't think – that was 2018 where Koulibaly had the big year.
Maybe. And so maybe there was just 1 tight end they were relying on at a time. But they could have also been running 2 tight end sets. And I can't say that at the time, as a second-year person, in college that I was like really dialed in on like the ins and outs of the offense. I was just like, wow, they're going fast and they're scoring a lot of points.
I was going to say, like, I just think my knowledge has grown since then. I just can't remember enough to tell you.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch some, which actually sounds like kind of a fun prospect.
I'm going to go ahead and DM Scott Frost's locked Twitter account and ask him if they ran a lot of 2 tight end sets in 2017.
Sure, that message will get through. Maybe Mark Daniels will ask him on their next sit-down interview.
Are we going to talk about that at some point in this podcast? I know we didn't really. Yeah. All right. Well, let's do the position groups and then we'll touch on.
Let's not do it right in the middle of our.
Yeah. No, I wasn't saying let's do it now. If you haven't seen, UCF dropped it was like a 25-minute interview with Scott Frost, on YouTube, interviewed by Mark Daniels. And if you came for, what the capital of Uganda is, then you're going to love the video. If you came for thoughts on the direction of the program, maybe not so much, but.
Yeah. All right. Offensive line. We'll get to that in a little bit. Offensive line. This is a weird one. Listing off some of these players, there's like 4 tackles and not enough for the other positions. Paul Rubelt, Preston Cushman, Kai Leftwich, Justin Royes, Guard Mimilar, Carter Miller. I also added Walt Claire Flynn in there. I can't believe you forgot him. I'm really mad at you for that.
I'm so sorry. You were probably so pissed.
I'm not going to lie. When I first read it, I didn't stand out to me. But then as I was going through it later, I was like, wait, there are a lot of tackles here. Also, I read your like breakdown, like eyes barely open. And so I was kind of
sent it to you at like 6 a.m. this morning, which was probably not the ideal time.
I was like, okay. And then as I actually sat down to like do my ratings later on, I was like, okay, what do they have at offensive line? And I'm like, they've got 4 tackles, a guard, and a center. I was like, who else can play guard? And I was like, or center. And I was like, oh, Walt Claire Flynn.
You've got to be like having anxiety that they added guards that I've forgotten to add.
I don't know that they did.
I don't think they did, which is weird because why didn't we think more about this when they were adding all these guys?
I think we talked about it because we were like, can any of these tackles play guard? But
what makes it extra weird is I believe, unless I'm misremembering, Brandon Helwig interviewed Preston Cushman, and he said that their vision for them is for him to play tackle.
Dude, I don't know. Are they going to play? Because I know they've signed a couple of more players, which we'll get to in the news. Are they going to play a freshman at guard this year?
Can I say a really controversial take on them signing several very, let's call it what it is, low-rated offensive line signees, basically right at the deadline for signing day? I love it. That was like Frost's whole thing. I don't know. It's so stupid because Gus Malzahn poisoned me because I should not be happy that they're signing guys.
What did they say on the Pegasus podcast this week? Gus Malzahn poisoned me.
Yeah. If you haven't listened to Sons of UCF Live, we have a new segment called Who Said It, where Trace is given a quote from our podcast and he has to guess whether I or Bailey said it. I picked a quote. First one was last week, and I'm mad about it. I picked a quote that was like so obvious, neon blaring signs me that I wanted to like reverse psychology him, and nothing. He was just like, "Yeah, that's Christian." So we gotta try harder this week. But yeah, no, Gus poisoned me because I'm at the point now. Like it's actually gotten to the point that even when I see news about like 2026 or 2027 guys who are highly rated that UCF is into, I'm like, ugh. Like I've just lost all interest in the best players in the country, which it's like to compete in the Big 12, they need to keep recruiting at that level. They need to keep getting those types of players. And I guess the difference I'm hoping for with Frost is that they might even sometimes play them. But until I see that happen, I'm just like, I don't know. Frost, and it's so stupid because it's such a small sample size, but the 2 classes, and I also, let's also call it what it is too. It's not like Scott Frost sat down with tape and was like, I'm going to pick all these guys myself. It was, a whole staff, and that exact staff is not back. We don't know what they've lost as far as who was, evaluating those players the best, whatever. But it was all these guys who were undervalued and who they jumped on and came in and were NFL players. And so I don't hate I don't know. I guess when Gus would sign a really lowly rated player these last few years, I would just sort of discount it as that's not worth, that's not worth diving into. When Frost does it, I'm optimistic that they found something there.
I have more faith in the staff, I think, to develop. Like, I think they can develop them, which I don't know. I can't really base that off of anything because I haven't seen any of this current staff at work, but I just.
Who was developed under Gus on offense? What offensive players?
We talked about this, all the offensive linemen.
Yeah. And that was Herb.
And it was Herb Hand. Yeah.
That's kind of it.
Yeah.
RJ Harvey was ready-made and, well, not ready-made, but he came, Gus inherited a really good player there. And on top of that, RJ Harvey talks about in the documentary UCF put out on him that they wouldn't play him in 2022. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. It's It's bizarre.
I really want to use Gus Malzahn poison me this week, but I fear that Trace will once again figure out it's me. I don't know. We'll have to think about it.
I could have said that. I don't know.
I think I said to you jokingly that I said I'm just going to start intentionally saying outlandish things on the podcast to have to use for it, which is kind of not in the spirit of the game. But
that doesn't really work because like you say the more outlandish things. So if you start saying more outlandish things, then it's going to be obviously you. You have to start sounding more like me.
The Who Said It this week is going to be like, yeah, I could see it playing out that way.
That would be me.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I listed off all the offensive linemen.
We didn't do our thing.
Have any guards?
I have them at a 2, and I think you have them at a 2 as well.
I do.
All right.
Is this the first one that we both had the 1 for the wide receivers?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, they have some decent guys here. I just don't think they
face
have
of the program and Paul Rubel.
Yep.
Good group. They need more. that was and it's like I think you can put together parts of an O-line here. Carter Miller, guard Memolar, I feel great about. I think that might have been one of, if not the best portal acquisition. So Paul Rubel, guard Memolar, Carter Miller. It's 3/5 of the way there. Like you just got to figure out the rest.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, one of the other 3 tackles can probably be decent. I don't know.
They also have a really good offensive line coach. So I don't know. I'm not anticipating offensive line being a disaster. It just again falls in the category of they're not there yet.
Right. And it's to bring up another, I don't know how many times I've done a Moneyball reference on this podcast, but I don't know who's going to play guard. So it's like the Moneyball quote where it's like, if someone hits a ground ball to first base, there's going to be no one there to field it. Like, I'm like, if someone blitzes the A gap, there's only going to be a center and not a guard on one side. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do there, but they're going to figure it out, I guess.
I watched Moneyball last night.
I love that for you.
Yeah,
I kind of want to watch it tonight now.
It was a good night. One of my favorite Moneyball quotes, which I always forget about, is, and I don't know why, it's when the manager goes, "You are outside your mind." That is so much better than "you are out of your mind." Tell someone they are outside of their mind. I'm going to start using that in just my regular vocabulary.
Outside your mind.
Great. I said to you last night, I don't mean to completely derail us, that I have to be like, Moneyball is a very popular movie. I think a lot of people watch it regularly. There's a Twitter account dedicated to people who are obsessed.
Because I guess I wonder if it's kind of niche. Because like sometimes I tell people that Moneyball is one of my favorite movies, and they're like, "Oh, I've never seen it." Or like, "What's that?" Those
people live sad lives. But I wonder if because I also am not a baseball fan, really in any way. I don't know if I could name 5. Yeah. Well, once the Orlando Rays
wearing a Durham Bulls hat on the podcast right now, but
I don't think I could name 5 MLB players. Like I have to be.
I thought you were going to say teams. I was going to get so mad at you.
I can name all the teams. I think. Well,
yeah, I think we did this before.
Yeah, I think I can. There's a couple that trip me up. Like, well, we're not going to get into it because they're going to trip me up. But
I'm going to keep taking us on another tangent. Last week at trivia with our trivia team, I'm like the sports guy. And so they asked how many Canadian teams are there in the NHL? And
4.
No.
2?
No.
7?
There's 7.
Oh, there we go.
But so I thought it was 7 because I started listing them off in my head. And to check my answer, I ended up on the back of my little paper listing every single team in the NHL. And then I was like, all right, yeah, it's 7. So
yeah, it's the Canadians, the Maple Leafs, the Senators, and the other 4.
Exactly. Yep. Great job.
The Argonauts? No, that's CFL.
Where are we right now? Oh,
we just finished up offensive line.
Yeah, we're moving over to the defense, which I feel like is going to be a lot better. And it's going to be a happier conversation. Let's start at defensive end. Got Malachi Lawrence, Nigel Kelly, Sincere Edwards, Isaiah Nixon, among others. What'd you give it?
I gave it a 5.
Me too. Oh, dang it! I spoiled it. I was just excited that I finally gave something a 5.
Feel really good about defensive end, man. I feel really good about it because I already felt good about Nigel Kelly and Malachi Lawrence, and I think that was a huge win for UCF to hold on to Nigel. Was he one of the ones he did enter the portal, right?
I think he did. And then
he was who entered and then announced he was coming back. And then on top of that, you have Isaiah Nixon, who was starting to play and starting to make an impact by the end of last season, and then you have Sincere Edwards, who just had a really impressive true freshman season at Pitt, who you're now bringing in. This is a good group, man. This is a really good group.
Sincere Edwards, who I think was my answer a couple weeks ago in the mailbag, who was like, who's one of the current players that will end up getting drafted? And I was like, it's going to be Sincere Edwards, based on just the fact that he had a good season as a true freshman at Pitt. And I don't know. But yeah, I think this is a good group, and there's undoubtedly going to be probably a fifth guy that's, at least able to be in the rotation. But as it stands, I think they're solid 2 deep on both sides of the line. So that's great.
That's not a thing we've ever really been able to say. It always felt like they were really strong at the top of the depth chart, but never really had the depth. And now Scott Frost and his staff come in and kind of accidentally have that depth in your line.
Yeah. This is going to sound dumb because I know he only just kind of broke out in 2023 and then played again in 2024. But I think Malachi Lawrence is my, how is he still here player of the year right now?
Yeah, I think that's fair. It
feels like he's been here forever, even though I know he hasn't. But
it's because he kind of he's like the old school, what am I trying to say here? Like the old school of was a bench guy, then was a contributor, then became a starter and a star. Like literally did the old path of rising up year by year, which is, kind of unusual.
When did he get to UCF? Was it 2021?
I want to say, I was going to say earlier than that, but let me go look.
I don't know if he could have gotten here earlier than that. Could he?
I really don't understand eligibility anymore. And
well, good news.
I don't know if I even
change again.
Well, I was going to say, did I even send you the whole? There was another judge that ruled this week. I think it was a D2 player who they said their D2 eligibility shouldn't count at the FBS level, and the judge was like, okay,
we can't handle it.
So, all right, Malachi Lawrence, his first season here, you nailed it. Was 2021. Spent the season working with the scout team.
Yeah. So I guess he has been here a while. So that I guess it counts because it does feel like he's been here forever, and he kind of has.
This is going to be his first non-Gus season.
Yeah, good for him.
That's true for the vast majority of this roster.
That's true. Yeah. All right, let's move on to defensive tackle then. If we don't have anything else to say on defensive end,
let's do it.
John Walker, RJ Jackson, Horace Lockett, among others. I can't remember. I feel like there's one that you were missing, but I couldn't figure out who it was.
I hate that you said that because I think I am too, but I don't know who it is.
Well, Lee Hunter's gone.
John Walker, RJ Jackson, Horace Lockett, and the mystery player. You'll have to stay tuned next week when we reveal the identity of the mystery player.
This probably wasn't who you're thinking of. It's not really who I'm thinking of either. But did Derek LeBlanc end up coming back too?
Yeah, Derek LeBlanc is so not who I'm thinking of, but he did come back.
I know. Okay.
Yeah. Well, either way, those three, I know I'm missing someone.
I don't know who it is.
I know I'm missing someone.
And no, because Matt Alexander left too, right?
Yeah. Wait. Yeah. Right? Oh, no.
Brother, I don't know. You did more research for this than I did.
Okay, why don't you talk for a second while I try
I looked at a list of players and was like, 4. I don't know. I don't know. But either way, I guess, do you want to give your number while you're still searching and then guess mine and then I'll talk?
Yeah, sure. My number was a 4.
Oh, okay. Guess mine.
Yours was a 4.
Yeah, I kind of was about to give it away.
I was going to guess that anyway, but yeah.
Well, so I feel like maybe forgotten in our, and I don't know, this might not even be true, but this was a good point that actually Adam made in this week's Sons of UCF newsletter. When we talking about the face of the program, we had that conversation. We settled on Paul Rubelt kind of by default. We didn't really mention John Walker, and I know, Adam did, which I actually thought was a pretty good shout, other than the fact he didn't play last year, but I think I don't want to say most fans, but I think he would be one of the few players that a lot of fans could name on the roster at this point. Because he's supposed to be, highest rated recruit. He is supposed to be the superstar defensive tackle for UCF, and having him back is absolutely massive. And next to him, they've added, Horace Lockett. They've added RJ Jackson. I think as long as one of them, and if not both of them, turn out to be solid additions, then you're going to be cooking there, because John Walker, I think, has serious superstar potential and has, arguably already kind of shown some of that as a freshman 2 years ago. So I don't even remember. I started talking and I was like, I'm covering for Christian while he looked something up. I don't even remember what you're looking up.
I was trying to figure out if we forgot someone.
The other defensive tackle.
I don't think we did.
Okay, that's great.
I swear we did.
Good job, man.
Doesn't matter. I will give you $10 if you can tell me where Matthew Alexander will be playing football in 2025.
Toledo.
Nope. You really think that he would hit? Matthew Alexander went to Toledo.
I don't know. I don't know. What? Give me a hint.
This team also wears gold, and they beat UCF soundly in the 2023 Gasparilla
Georgia Tech.
You are correct. Well done.
When you said gold, I was going to say Georgia Tech before you said beat UCF, but it doesn't really matter. Wait, didn't Lockett come from there?
Yes, we traded.
That's funny.
Yep.
We traded. Yeah, we made a trade.
I wonder who got like cash considerations as part of that. Hopefully us. But yeah, I mean, I'll echo everything you just said, and I'm not going to literally just repeat it. But you know, we can also move on because we're 45 minutes in. But yeah,
great.
John Walker is really great. A superstar in the making. So I was convinced that we were never going to see him in a UCF uniform again, and him being back automatically warrants a 4. Wow, we have a lot to do in a short amount of time. To go ahead.
It'd be fine. Linebacker Lewis Carter, Phil Picciotti, I think is how we, or is it Picciotti? Picciotti. That's right. Andrew Harris, Kelly Lawson, Quay Birdsong. I added Cole Kozlowski.
You don't have to. You can just say them. You don't have to be like.
No, I'm adding them so that I don't know why I'm doing that. And then I also, for some reason, I just went to look at the freshman class and added Malachi Boone.
I absolutely should have included Cole Kozlowski. That was an oversight, not me thinking he's not good.
That's good. What did you give this group?
I gave it a 3, and I think you might have given it a 2.
I gave it a 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at positive.
This kind of falls under like last year's linebacker room to me, where I'm like, I think there are enough players who could be good that they'll be able to find some solid starters here.
For me, it's simple. You have Kelly Lawson, who has committed to UCF, decommitted to UCF, and then recommitted to UCF. So just right there, how can you not talk about him when we've had to talk about him on multiple podcasts? The big one for me is Lewis Carter. I just, when you boil it down to UCF has a guy who was playing for Oklahoma, who decided to leave Oklahoma, and the whole fan base was like, I think we hate this coaching staff because they couldn't hold on to this guy, and now he's going to be at UCF. So I don't know if this group is going to be electric. I don't know if this group is going to be deep, but I don't think it's headed for catastrophe.
I kind of like, it's going to sound bad because it's going to age terribly, but I kind of like where they are here with linebacker because they have Lewis Carter. They have a guy that I think obviously the coaching staff is excited about in Kozlowski. Phil Picciotti, I think, has some upside too. And then you're also still, and also Kelly Lawson, but you're also still looking at Andrew Harris, Quay Birdsong, Malachi Boone as some like young guys kind of in the background who I think I don't know. Maybe this is the year that Andrew Harris has to show that like he's going to turn into what we thought he was going to turn into, because this will be his 3rd year. I think, did he end up redshirting one of the years, or is he actually a junior now?
Good question.
I don't know, but this has to be the year for him. But yeah, I think there's enough here, and I'm not bold enough to say it's going to be a 4 because I say there's enough here, not knowing and not seeing a lot of these guys play. But I think they'll figure something out here, and I think it's a 3 that could border on a 4, maybe even a 5. Probably not, but probably a 4. I like that. Cornerback, got Jaden Bellamy, Chasen Johnson, DJ Bell, Isaiah Reed, Jakari Henderson, Jalen Hayward. What do you think?
Thanks for not. What's funny is I said you don't have to include the ones I forgot, and then you did it, and I'm like, who the hell? like it completely messed with me to hear a name that wasn't on my list.
Did that on purpose?
I would have. That was an intentional omission on my part.
Oh, okay.
But
I don't know.
We shouldn't say who it was. I'm like, yeah, Jaden Bellamy. Screw that guy. I don't think he's gonna be any good at all. I didn't have Jalen Hayward on my initial list, but I gave it a 4.
Oh, what did I give it?
Well, from your reaction, I'm guessing not a 4.
Maybe, or maybe I'm trying to throw you off, like you're trying to throw off Trace on who said it.
You gave it a 3.
Yeah, I gave it a 3. Explain the 4. I'm curious.
I feel good about a lot of these guys.
Okay. Thanks. I'm glad we settled that. Let's move on.
I love the idea of us just leaving it there. That's the end of the I genuinely think that there are several guys here who I think can go on to be stars for UCF. I cannot say enough good things about getting Jaden Bellamy from Syracuse is not something that I think we've talked about enough, as was something that was a big win in the portal for UCF. That's a guy who probably could have gone and played at a lot of places if he'd wanted to. And I think that's a big, getting, I don't know. This was a different portal cycle for UCF than.
I'll say this before you go on.
Okay.
Us not talking about Jaden Bellamy enough is probably why I didn't give this a 4.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't know enough about him. I remember him being one of the Syracuse guys that I think the better of the 2 Syracuse ads that they had. Right? I think.
Yes. He was the one that was,
Other than that, I don't remember much because it's been an off season.
Okay. He was a very good pickup, 34 tackles, 6 pass deflections, and 2 interceptions last year. Okay. And the reason that I liked him a lot is because a lot of this portal cycle for UCF, it wasn't like what we'd seen under Gus, where it was let's go grab all these guys and be really good and win the conference, but then go 4-8. Surprise! It was a lot of just
worst surprise ever.
It was a lot of trying to fill holes, and Bellamy felt more like going out and getting a guy, and I felt good about that. The other guy that they went out and got was a guy they lost, and that was Chasen Johnson. I feel great about Chasen Johnson being back. Him playing the way he did as a true freshman implies and suggests he has the potential to be a very good player, and it sucked to lose him, and him being back is huge. So I feel good about that group. I just feel really good about it.
Yeah, no, I feel solid about it. I not knowing enough about Bellamy probably hurt me, but I also can't say I know enough about the other transfers in to warrant me giving it a 4. Because, I think based off that, I'm looking at Bellamy and Chasen Johnson as your starters on the outside probably. But I don't know. Probably, again, it's a 3 that could border on a 4 going like once the season arrives. It's curious. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Time will tell.
Safety, Damari Henderson, Braden Marshall, Phillip Dunham, Brandon Jacob. What'd you give it?
I gave it a 3.
So did I.
All right, there we go.
I don't know. This is going to sound dumb because we just mentioned Jakari Henderson, but again, like the Henderson twins were going to leave, right? And then they decided to stay, and I don't think we're talking about that enough. Like not seeing Damari Henderson last year sucked, and I kind of thought he would be gone and we'd never see him in a UCF uniform again, but he's back and presumably going to start.
He had the 2023 season he had, and I was sitting here that offseason going, I think he's ready to be the next defensive star for UCF. And him not playing all of last year and it being pretty, I don't think that was hidden well that they were planning to transfer pretty early into that season. Then them announcing or it being announced that they're going to hit the portal, then they don't hit the portal, then they stay at UCF. That was, and I don't want to discount Jakari because Jakari was coming along in his own right too, but holding on to Damari is huge. And he's a guy who I think we're going to see a lot of good things from this year. It's just so odd that, to your point, and what we were talking about earlier is like John Walker and Damari Henderson, I do think if they had both been healthy, I think that changes this past season. I don't think it changes it into a Big 12 title game winning season because neither of them, know how to like run passing drills with KJ Jefferson. But it's still, those are two, arguably, are those two on this past roster 2024, are those two of the top 5 guys, maybe even top 4 guys on defense?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, so like that hurt.
I mean, I'm trying to think of who else, like Lee Hunter would be in there. And the 2 guys who are in the draft probably would be rounding up the top 5, I'm thinking. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Even Mac McWilliams, like, I don't know that.
I would have put them both ahead of Mac.
Like, that's the thing. Like, I don't know. Based on his season at UCF, I don't know that Mac McWilliams would be in the top 5. But the fact that he's getting draft buzz is like recalibrating how I thought about him. But it was, I don't know. I just don't know if they used him right. But no, they would have been 2 of the stars of the defense. And again, like I said about John Walker, as far as faces of the program, I think maybe to a less extent Damari Henderson, but still kind of in that conversation probably.
I shouldn't even declare this because I don't have the stat in front of me, but Damari Henderson for the Oklahoma State game, he became the first UCF defensive player to be named National Player of the Week, I think in 10 years or close to 10 years.
Sure. I knew it was a big thing. I didn't know the 10 years part maybe, but that sounds about right. I remember that being a big accomplishment at the time. Yep. Yeah. So I don't know. I think we talked a lot about Damari Henderson, but Braden Marshall, I think, is a guy I can't remember because he was a guy who played a lot in the slot too.
Yeah, I just kind of threw him in at safety. He's a DB.
And then some of these other guys they brought in, Dunham and Jacob. I think it's again a decent group, and I think probably just to put a bow on this whole thing is like there were more. It's funny that you say like you looked at the roster through this exercise and kind of saw like, okay, the 3-9 stuff last week maybe wasn't the biggest thing. I looked at this roster and I'm like, I think I feel better about everything than I did last week.
Let me first off just to have it. Yeah, he was the first. He won it in 2023, National Defensive Player of the Week for his performance against Oklahoma State. He was the first UCF defensive player to earn that honor since Terrence Plummer in 2014.
Wow,
so it had been a minute. Several UCF offensive players. Actually, 2. Can you name the 2 UCF offensive players who won National Player of the Week in that span? They each won it twice. Mackenzie Milton was one.
Dylan Gabriel.
Correct. Isn't that easy? We were, Mililani High School, man.
We were loving the quarterback position back then.
It was a different time.
It was.
What did you say right before that? Because I was going to say something.
I said that I'm surprised, like you.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
It's more. Listen, I feel great about that. Well, great's a strong word. I feel really good about the defense. I do. I think, and I think they'll add more post spring. I think they have the ability to put together a really solid defense. I'm not predicting it, but it does feel like there is a disaster scenario that exists for the offense where they can't figure out O-line. No one emerges at quarterback. The wide receivers really are that. Like, I can just see the offense being horrible. And I'm not predicting it to be, and I don't think it will be, because I think that that's a catastrophization of what can happen. But I think it's on the table.
I think so. And I think a lot of what we've talked about, and I don't want to keep doing it because it's such a different time and it's not the same at all. A lot of what we've talked about since Frost came back is that this year kind of does in a few ways feel like 2016, and it could play out that way where the defense kind of carries the team. But the thing with 2016 is that the offense showed flashes. It was clear that a lot of those young players were going to turn into stars. And then what happened. We will see with this offense, I guess, because there are a few of those guys on this offense that could do that. That could be those young guys that, like you mentioned earlier in your dream scenario, where you go into next year with like guys who, maybe 2025 wasn't a great season or anything, but guys who played well and kind of given UCF a good foundation going into next year. But the disaster scenario happening, like you just mentioned, if that happens, it won't feel like 2016, because you'll kind of go into the offseason thinking we don't have enough on offense to put anything else together.
Well, I don't necessarily think there's any indication we can make for 2026 now, because that's going to depend on recruiting. It's going to depend on a lot of things. It also is like it's what we've said a million times. The offense can suck, and if it sucks because they put a bunch of young guys out there, that's a lot more palatable than they rolled with Taven Jackson and they rolled with Jaden Nixon and it didn't work. So I don't know. We just have to kind of wait and see. I'm bullish on the defense. I'm feeling good about the defense. So time will tell.
I think it'll be solid, but we'll see. We'll kind of revisit this maybe after the spring portal, maybe closer to the season.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking about it more just as spring ball approaches, even though there will not be a spring game.
Yeah. All right, real quick, I just kind of mentioned it earlier, the football news. 4 more players signed with UCF last week, 3 offensive linemen, 1 defensive lineman. The offensive lineman we talked about before, Rayshawn McCaney, Camp Lott, Jacob Mayava. I think that might have been a new one. I don't remember talking about him before.
I don't think
the defensive lineman, it was Trenton Turner. So 4 more signees.
Every single one of those names is awesome.
Didn't really have – Jacob Mayava's brother is the quarterback at USC. Just fun fact. I don't have it in the football news, but if you want to talk about the Scott Frost interview, I mean, that kind of came out, and there wasn't anything super illuminating that came out of it. For me, it was just like kind of nice to hear from him, but didn't get a ton of like great insight into like what's coming up. I don't know. Kind of was just more like a reintroduction for him.
Yeah. Are we talking about the Scott Frost interview? I'm sorry. I was checking the basketball score because I thought you were going to do I thought you were going to do the week.
I mentioned it, but we don't have to. I can.
No. We can. No, I'd love to talk about the Frost interview. I just thought you were going to do game of the week first, and I thought I'd pop on over to the basketball game. UCF's playing Iowa
still
State
tied
right now in basketball. UCF's up 1 right now.
Okay.
Anyway, no, I don't know what I was expecting. I mean, it was an in-house production. You weren't going to get anything super insightful. I thought there were some interesting things. One thing that stood out to me was Frost talking about how he was intentionally not going to just bring in all the guys he knew and the guys he worked with before, and he really wanted to find the best guys. And that's kind of the double-edged sword for me of I'm glad he said that, and I'm glad he did that, because we talked about how the alarm bells for us were going to be if he was just like, I'm bringing back the 2017 staff because college football has changed so much. The double-edged side of it is like the new guys you want to bring in are Alex Grinch. Like that's your I'm branching out. I'm never going to let that go, but I don't know. And I also do want to measure that to some degree. He did bring back a lot of guys who are guys he knew. I don't want to give the impression it was a brand new staff, but I thought that perspective was interesting. Another thing that really stood out to me that I think we've talked about on the podcast before was he was talking about his delightful surprise of seeing how they have a waiting list for season tickets, and how his first year here he was delivering pizzas, to the sororities and fraternities to try to like drum up excitement for the season. And we've talked about in the podcast that the whole bounce house being sold out, every game being a given thing, that was post Frost. Even in 2017, they had a couple well, they had a couple rough crowds that year because the hurricane moved things around, but it was like a sellout. The first true sellout under Frost was the USF game, second to last home game he ever had. I remember earlier in that season for the first ever space game for East Carolina. You remember this? UCF did a big promotion that week, a big push to sell out the stadium. And Danny White was tweeting about it. It's like, let's sell out the stadium. Let's get it. They didn't. It was about 40,000. There were some empty patches. And it's going to be really something for Frost because barring something absolutely unforeseen, I'm willing to bet Jacksonville State's going to be a sellout, just like every other opener has been. And I like that. It's funny to me to think about that the environment that Scott Frost is going to see for Jacksonville State is probably going to be the third best environment he's ever seen in that stadium.
Yeah.
It's weird to think about.
It's probably true. But it is
all right.
Really.
That's all I had on that.
That's fine.
Except really quickly, what the hell was the trivia segment?
I don't know. It was funny.
What was that?
my favorite part of this whole experience was I watched it before you, and then once you sat down to watch it, you started texting me like some different things. You're like, what's this about? And I kept saying, just wait. And I was like, just wait. And then just randomly, I think like 15 minutes in, it's like not even like at the end we'll just throw this in. It was like a giant portion of the 25 minutes was Mark Daniels being like, all right, what about some trivia? And he starts asking him, Scott Frost is really good at country capitals and not as good at some of the 90s trivia. I think it was it 90s trivia or was it TV trivia?
It was TV trivia. Yeah.
He was hit or miss a little bit there. There was a whole other section, I forgot what it was, that he was going to ask about that Frost was like, I never saw it. And he's like, all right, I'll just skip that. I don't remember what it was.
What really threw me, and if you guys, it's worth watching because it's Scott Frost talking about UCF, but the trivia thing came out of nowhere and was really just shocking watching that play out. And I think what made it extra weird was then they finished trivia and then did like 2 more minutes on real questions right at the end. I have to say, all trivia criticism aside, Scott Frost's knowledge of world capitals, as someone who loves geography, was very impressive. I don't know if we needed that, but it was impressive. Also, my other favorite part was, surely if you're listening to this, and if not, whatever, it's maybe you're a newer UCF fan or whatever, one of the like very well-known anecdotes of Scott Frost was how what he loved about UCF and how different it was from Nebraska was how after practice, at the end of the day, he can go to the Wawa across the street from campus and no one's getting his autograph. No one's staring at him. He's just a normal guy, and he gets his little hoagie or whatever and goes. It's like a very famous in UCF circles, that anecdote. Mark Daniels asked him, "Do you get recognized at Wawa?" And it's such an inside baseball thing, but I just found that question so funny given that backdrop.
The other thing, and you and I have talked, I can't remember if we talked about this on the podcast, but you and I have talked about this before about, I think we have mentioned on the podcast, just seeing Scott Frost wearing logos that came after his time. I texted you like the screenshot, and I was like, he's wearing a Script Knights Q-zip, an Orlando hat with like the new Nighthead, and then in the background you see the Canaveral Blues space jersey from 2023. And it was a lot at once. I think I sent it to you and you were like, that's too much.
It was, I was laughing a lot of that text because it was so true. And it actually is kind of funny. I guess we just didn't realize how much UCF has updated and changed their branding since he was here, but it's very weird still to see him in new merch.
Yeah. I also forgot to add this is later news that came out just kind of shortly before we got on the podcast. UCF's also added former DB Trico Johnson to their staff. He posted a picture of him in a UCF polo, like official headshot. I don't believe we know exactly what capacity yet, but cool to see him back.
Analyst or something along those
lines.
Just
talked about him last week on the podcast. We were mentioning that 2016 win over Tulane where he scored 2 touchdowns.
I'm assuming what happened is Frost listened last week and was like, I forgot about him.
Trico. Let me give him a call and see if he's interested.
Let me see if he wants a job.
Yeah. All right. Game of the week real quick. Again, this will be games of the week because UCF softball early on in the season will be playing just a lot of these tournaments, and I can't pick just one game. They are 5-1 right now. I know they're playing, as we're speaking, they're down 5-3 to Missouri, unless it's changed since like 5 minutes
ago. It is 5-3. They did not tweet for more than an hour at one point, which I believe was 5-0.
Just before we got on the podcast, I was like, let me go to their Twitter and see like what the score is. Hadn't posted anything since play ball, and I was like, that can't be good. I then logged on to ESPN Plus, saw they were down 5-0 in the top of the first, still with 2 outs. They haven't even got out of the inning yet. And then I don't know. I was surprised to check just now, and it was 5-3. So maybe they can complete that comeback. But either way, they play that game tonight against Missouri, and then tomorrow they play Liberty, who's another ranked team. But then this weekend they are at the Clearwater Invitational, which is fun for me because I get to go on Friday. Friday, they play number 5, Texas A&M at 11 a.m., and then they play at 3:30 against Auburn. Saturday, they play number 25, Clemson at 9 a.m., and then Sunday, they wrap up with Ohio State at 1 o'clock and number 7, Florida State at 8 o'clock. That game's on ESPN. So a lot of chances here for quality wins early on in the season. 5-1 start last weekend was nice. And, yeah, I'm just excited that we're back at this time of the year with softball back, baseball's back this weekend. It'll be fun.
I'm jealous that you get to see him.
Yeah, be great. You should have come.
Yeah.
It's kind of too late now, but
notice the whole watching dogs, parents on a cruise.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh, I don't know when they get back. I don't think you told me that, so I don't know.
It's a week. I got a lot of time ahead of me.
Okay. All right. Tweet of the week.
Tweet of the week this week is going to be something a little different. It's going to be new UCF uniform of the week. If you were on Twitter, you know why. Let's take a look at it. If you're on the YouTube feed, oh no, the UCF baseball team dropped some new uniforms for this season that included, drum roll please, a gold jersey. I'm not 100% sure. I think it's the first new gold jersey for any major UCF sport in probably close to 10 years.
It's got to be.
Wild Bill, I'm sure, is crying tears of joy. Bailey, weigh in.
You hate it. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm just kind of like, it's all right.
Hate's a really strong word that I used via text several times with you after it came out.
You used it intentionally, I think.
My hand slipped across the keyboard. Guys, I'm not about the gold jerseys. You know that if you listen to this for any amount of time. I don't see what this gold jersey is accomplishing that is not just going to prove me right. I don't know. It's so hard to get to work on a jersey, on that texture. And it's why so many, what'd you say?
On a fabric. On
that fabric. Yeah. Texture was just the entirely wrong word. Thank you, Bailey. And it's why there's so many, like we've seen a lot of teams where, that have gold as a color and try gold jerseys and it always just kind of looks the same. The one reason that I'm going to allow it for now, I'm going to allow it. Like I can be like, no, don't wear that. And they'll be like, I do think that baseball, if there was ever a sport that gets a little more leeway, it's baseball, just because every college baseball team wears a lot of different colors and it's a lighter color to wear outside. That's fine. I know Florida State kind of wears that similar sort of, my issue is it always just looks more cream to me than gold, and maybe people don't care. Maybe that's whatever. And it matches the old State of UCF logo on the hat.
I was going to say it works to me. It works with that hat. So I'm like, yeah, if that's how they're going to wear it, that's fine.
And that's kind of why I'm going to roll with it, because I think that look alone they can pull off. I don't want to see it get mixed in with, other things.
No, it shouldn't.
I don't even want it to touch the other jerseys.
They have too many other good looks to sacrifice any of them for this.
I mean, it's valiant effort. I guess
it's fine. Whatever. But
here's why it's bothering me. Because you're right. It is fine. And I'm not going to lose sleep over baseball wearing a gold jersey. Probably. I'm afraid for the implication. That's what
it surprised me, I will say.
I'm afraid for the implication that, I don't know. I'd assume that we would never see a gold jersey again from UCF because
this uniform dropped days after the UCF schedule release Jeopardy video where they made fun of the idea of gold jerseys.
Yeah, but that's why I'm freaked out, man, because they just dropped gold jerseys for baseball, and we know there's new football stuff on the way. What if Frost came in and was like, what I really was missing from the 2016-2017 stretch was gold football jerseys? Yeah, but
surely he would have seen the set and been like, we don't have pewter, so before I get the gold jerseys that I want that I was missing back then, we got to get pewter back.
Yeah. Yeah, Frost was like, I just really would like a nice lighter color we could wear on the road. And they were like, oh, we have a lighter color. I don't know. If it stays that, look at the photo. If it stays that, and that is all it's used for, I can be on board. I can even say that it might look good in some situations. If it grows...
when the sun hits it just right, it might look okay.
Now, it's funny because I should have loaded this photo up. There was, I don't know who it is, some equipment company or something. I don't know if they post another photo, and it's a photo, obviously, if it's close up, and the gold looks a lot deeper there and looks better, in my opinion. So maybe it's a lighting thing. I don't know. Maybe they wear it at night. I don't know. But if this gold grows like a parasite, stretching across the rest of UCF athletics and wiping out all the amazing, beautiful black and white designs where gold is an accent as it's meant to be, that's why I'm terrified of this gold jersey.
That quote will not be used on Who Said It, because only Christian could have said all of that.
They also revealed several new uniforms for baseball, and one of them is freaking incredible. And again, I should have loaded the photo up. It's the night mode version. It's an all black with the gold Nighthead, and that one looks incredible.
Yeah. At baseball, I feel like most of the time nails it.
Dude, their uniforms.
I think they still did.
They did. Their set. I mean, their set is going to be. I mean, they give pretty much every program run for their money. Do they have the best? What?
Did you see the pink UCF women's basketball?
Yeah, I did. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
They've done that. Have they done that before?
No,
I think they've done a white with like a pink stack. This might be their first.
So yeah, the all pink I thought was a new look to me. Like I don't think I'd seen
It's just tough because like those look good, but also like, do we want to talk about that team?
That's tough.
It's a tough line. It's a tough line to toe.
Yeah.
But yeah, UCF baseball has gold. I can't. It's just me saying it out loud is insane. I can't believe the gold jerseys are back. I kind of have a feeling we'll see them this weekend at some point. I was Maybe surprised. Sunday. I would assume Sunday. Yeah. Man, Citronaut Saturday. Was it Citronaut Saturday or Citronaut Sunday? I can't remember.
Saturday.
Citronaut Saturday, that losing streak, they were like, we got to go heavy in the other direction.
You go back to our school colors. Grace is probably celebrating that.
Speaking of baseball looking awesome, let's not forget that courtesy of Dick's Sporting Goods, never understanding when they're supposed to put merchandise out, we've seen a sneak peek of the baseball space uniform this year, and it is very freaking cool. And obviously, we're just looking at a replica jersey to be sold to consumers, but I'm ready to say that if it looks like that, and we'll see the hat and the rest of it, might potential for one of my favorite space things ever that UCF's done.
I like it. So, did you also see that Alumni Hall is selling a white Orlando jersey, different than the one that I have, because I have the one that's just kind of like I don't even know what to describe that material, but it's actually really comfortable. And it has Orlando, has the number 23, has the 23 in the back, so I bought it in 2023. This one is it looks like it's like it's stitched because it's the Nike version. It just says Orlando across the chest, has the Nike logo, no number on the back, has like the gold and black trim on the sleeves. It is more expensive than the one that I bought, but it's nice. I like it. And that was something I saw just before we got on the podcast, but
it's great, man.
Yeah.
We had a little barking incident, but we powered
through. It happens. We got through most of the podcast without having to deal with it, and we're done.
We did. They fell asleep, and I was thrilled. And then my neighbors were like, let's take trash out. We're done. Dogs. UCF men's basketball is at halftime. They're down 2. Bailey and I, I'm sure, will be watching the second half of that game. You won't be listening to this until tomorrow, so congratulations to UCF on beating top 10 team.
Sure. We'll get out of here. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week with episode 257. Until then, you can find us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at @ByCA Simmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. Thank you guys so much for being with us, and we will talk to you next week.
Bye, everybody.